Hello, everyone. How's everybody doing? My name is Muhammad Amira. I'm an Arabic teacher at St. Louis University High School, and I'm looking forward to um, be watching all of your presentations. So today we have, let me check, we have two, group 2, and group 3, 2, and group 4, 3. So each group will have 15 minutes to present and then 5 minutes for questions. So whoever is going to presenting, I'd like to the other two groups to be attentive to the presentation and just take notes of whatever questions they might have. So we'll have 5 minutes for each group for questions and responses. So in total, each group will have 20 minutes. So again, 15 minutes to present and 5 minutes for questions. All right. So which group would like to start?
We'd like to start if that's okay.
Which group is this?
Group 2.
2. All right. So please go ahead. Can you share your screen? Awesome. Perfect.
All right, so we're group 2-2. We're equal, and we're doing a presentation on gender equality.
So we'll start off by talking a little bit about what Equal does. It's in the name. We are a group that brings equality for all. And we make sure that we can reduce the inequalities that we see in the tech field and reproductive rights and wage discrimination, as well as abortion rights. And so what we've noticed is that the average gender equality index is at about 70%. And a lot of places claim that our world is becoming progressive, and yet this is still a very prominent data point that we're seeing. Currently, women have an average political involvement of 10%, economic of 47%, and 88% of education. And so we saw this as a very huge problem, and that's something that our group strives to advocate against. So what we did is we interviewed a day shelter in Portland, Oregon, United States. And this day shelter is basically what they focus on is helping women and other historically marginalized genders in recovering from houselessness and trauma. So we interviewed Liz Stark, who's the development director, and then Jessica Almroth, who's the volunteer and academic program manager. So what we're going to do before we get into that is talk a little bit about what homelessness is, especially on the scale for women. So worldwide, the number of homeless people can be estimated at anywhere from 100 million to 1 billion or more. And so what this tells us that, homelessness is a worldwide problem. It's not specific to one country, but it's a global thing. And what happens is that when we talk about homelessness, we don't realize that we're still shaping the definition for something we called hidden homelessness. Sister Jean Quinn refers to hidden homelessness as not only that physical location of where the homelessness is occurring, but also the experiences that people have behind closed doors, and how our government, our society is dealing with these issues and underestimating kind of the impact of this issue and a lack of understanding of what these experiences look and feel like. So we asked different questions to the people who work at Rosehaven. One of the first questions is about why is homelessness in particular so important for women and historically marginalized genders in particular? And oftentimes what happens is women have to sacrifice their job or their home to accommodate for the other people in their family. So they hold a lot of responsibility. And another one is, so what advice do they have for people who want to get involved with a problem like this? And one huge thing they mentioned is we're not going to see change if we don't get comfortable with talking about it. Whether it starts in your homes, it starts in your community, talking about and being comfortable with getting out of an echo chamber space where you're just, focused on one idea and opening that mindset to a more general, broad understanding of the problem and discussing with people is one of the first steps that people in our community can take.
Diversity in tech. This section of the slideshow will basically deal with women and marginalized gender in STEM fields. All, like the corporate world around us, the IT firms are like hugely male dominated, and like all the STEM subjects are like mostly opted by male or mostly opted by Asian or Caucasian males, uh, historically marginalized genders, and uh, women often find themselves opting for other subjects, and uh, like like not due to lack of inspiration. Uh, so lack of diversity in STEM is a huge problem. Could you please go to the next slide? But why does this issue matter? Well, the technology which are developed by these firms or by the STEM or by the like developers in STEM fields cater to the society, and if the developers are like not if the developers do not belong to a diverse group, then they might not understand the needs and concerns, and like fail to address the problems and concerns the the marginalized genders, marginalized races, and like the minority. Uh, what are the solutions? Well, there are many solutions, like offering scholarship to women. Like there are great scholarships out there, and improvements are being made. Um, the teachers play a crucial role while during the early education stage. Teachers need to inspire students from marginalized races, and like teachers need to get rid of the fear of math. Math phobia is a huge deal. Math phobia is one of the main reasons why many people like want to escape from the STEM fields. And another important point is improvement of work environment, like creating a healthier environment and creating a more welcoming atmosphere for people, for marginalized people to work in.
Another big issue with gender inequality is the gender wage gap. And so throughout the whole world, men earn on average 11.6% higher wages than women do for the same jobs. Some causes of this are differences in industries and jobs work. So typically there's a lot of jobs out there that men are typically work more than women. And so those like stereotypes and stuff, they play into that. The years of experience and the hours worked, as well as discrimination against women when they work different jobs. Some reasons why we need to fix the gender wage gap is because closing the gender wage gap, it will benefit women, make them more confident, and make them like more proud of the work that they're doing. It will boost business performance, and it will strengthen the global economy because like with everyone making the same wages, it'll make people more determined to like put their best foot forward if they know that the work that they're doing will get them like the money and the pay that they deserve. Also, fixing the gender wage gap will help to improve all other forms of gender inequality, because if people see that the wage gap is closing and that it's fixing, then it'll encourage other people to fix other forms of inequality, because it'll show them that it's possible to change these things, and it'll encourage them to do so. And then also just because women deserve equal treatment in our world, just basic human rights, they should be treated as the exact same as men in our society. And then some ways that we can go about narrowing the gender wage gap. We can raise the minimum wage, which will force everyone to begin getting closer wages to each other. We can unionize workplaces. A study that was done found that compared women that make money compared in companies that have unions, they make 94 cents to the dollar when compared to men when working in unions. And when they don't work in unions, they make 78 cents to the dollar compared to men. We can also increase pay transparency, which basically just means that you can see like what your colleagues are making, what your coworkers are making, because a lot of the women that are being underpaid compared to men, they don't even realize that the men are making so much more money than them. So if we make it so that women can know how much their colleagues are working, then it'll just make it easier for us to fight against the gender wage gap. And then we can also expand paid family and medical leave, because women a lot of the time have to deal with like raising families typically more than men, and having to go through like maternity leave and childbirth and things like that. So making it easier for women to go through those things will just make it much easier. You'll be able to pay them more, and it'll just make it a lot easier on women. And then stop basing employee pay off salary history, because if we base what we pay our employees based on what they made in the past, because historically women have always made less money than men. So if we continue to base it on the past, then women will never make the same as men, because historically that's just how it's been. So we need to pay people based on what they deserve instead of what they have made in the past.
The next problem that arises is abortion rights. They're a huge problem in my country. Plus, abortion law is very strict, and many Polish women have already died because of it. The Article 4A describes the provision in 2 sections. Also, the problem for that is the government. After the introduction of the new regulations in Poland, citizens who did not agree with them took to the streets to protest. The rulers and politicians and hostile police forces on the protesters, which used violence and attacked the people on the streets. Politicians found this protest illegal, but what can people do to get heard, respected, if they don't go out and scream?
Okay, so abortion rights in Zimbabwe, which is in my country, it's only legal in under certain circumstances in which you have to go to court, and it's quite a long, winding process. So, and normally if it's done illegally, it could carry a penalty for up to 5 years in jail, actually. So yeah, and I really think that's a problem. For example, we can talk about the consequences of having abortion laws. This normally leads to like a rise in black market abortion, if I can say that, because people tend to go to illegal street corners to perform these abortions. So yeah, and normally it's quite unsafe and normally leads to death. And secondly, a recent study also estimated that banning abortion could lead to an increase in pregnancy-related deaths by about 21%. So yeah, that's quite a scary figure if you were to ask me. And the legal status, by the way, also affects the fact that whether a woman or not will be able to continue with the education or pursue a career. So in that way, you could say that that holds back women from doing what they want. And yeah, it's quite a problem.
So our group had to overcome 2 main struggles, one of which is absenteeism, which I can account for because I was absent for a majority of the summit meetings. But it was because of the drastic time difference between your country and mine. But we overcame that by being very considerate, which I thank my group mates for. They were very considerate and understanding. And I was able to contribute my work asynchronously outside the meeting. The other struggle we had to overcome was the conflict of interest, and we overcame that with a vote. Since a lot of us had different ideas and different opinions on those ideas, we came to a conclusion by holding a vote. Yes. Overall, we all learned and enjoyed, and we got to learn from each other. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mansi, Chaudhry, Andrew, Hannah, Sean, and Nuela. You represented, I think, some important aspects from gender equality, as I like the last part also that you explained how you came to choose the different parts that you prepared to present. Now, I'd like to open the floor. You just finished exactly on time. Well, actually, because we started a little bit like 2 minutes later, we still have 2 minutes, but that's fine. So we have 5 minutes for questions and responses. So in the other groups, the other two groups, now that you have watched this presentation about gender inequality, do you have any questions would you like to ask group 2 or comments? So active listening is very important. And yes, whatever comes to your mind, if you have any questions. Now, I assume the presenters were somehow experts. They did some research. They presented very well their topics. So what is something from what you have watched in this presentation that dragged your attention, or something that you would like to ask any of the presenters? Or maybe a general questions to the whole group. Yes, I can see a hand, please. Aiden and then Oscar. Aiden, please go ahead.
I just had a quick comment. I really thought that the interview that you guys did, I thought that was like awesome. I thought that was just a really good way to just show like professionalism in your presentation. And that was something looking back, I wish like my group would have thought of. That was a really cool idea.
Cool. Thank you, Aiden. Oscar, please go ahead.
I have a comment and a question. My comment was, I really like the design of your guys' PowerPoint. It was really well made. I liked like how it was just like well thought out each slide. And then my question was, did you guys find that like the wage gap situation was sort of different across like different parts of the world?
Yeah, so I did the most of the research on the wage gap, and typically in places in like Eastern Europe, there had the least the least difference in pay for men to women. And so typically the wage gap ranged from like 3% to like 25 almost in the worst countries. So there was like a huge difference around the world, but typically it was the gender, like they made the same amount of money or closer to the same amount of money in places like Eastern Europe.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Oscar, for the question, and Aiden for the comment, and thank you for the response, Andrew. Now we have 2 more minutes for more questions. I can see all the hands, all the photos. So if you have a question, you can just open the mic and ask. Okay, I have a question based on the reflection that Noela made in the end of the presentation. Now, you said that you had different topics and that you had to negotiate which topics to choose. I'm just curious, what other topics you have and you choose to present the ones? Like, what are the ones that you choose to drop from the presentations? Just out of curiosity.
So I can really only speak for myself because I wasn't really in the meetings. But for my project, initially, I was going to propose that our group do a rehabilitation program for women and children who are victims of abuse, wherein they can rehabilitate and they can be taught life skills, because a lot of the time survivors of abuse, they stay in that abusive relationship because they cannot move forward or have or become financially stable on their own. That's why they stay in these abusive relationships. And so my idea was that we would partner with educational institutions and give these women like scholarships so that they can learn how to work in the real world and provide for themselves and their children as well, so that that won't be their excuse to stay in that toxic relationship, sir.
Yeah, and another thing I'd like to add to that is when we were discussing in a group, all of these different topics and ideas, such as the wage gap, and then talking about abortion rights, and then talking about diversity in tech, and homelessness, they were all kind of separate ideas that we had within themselves. So what happened was we were trying to see, how can we draw from the best of each of these ideas. And what we noticed is that when we're talking about these kind of issues on a global scale, gender inequality is something that ties them all together. And so we were able to tie all of these different ideas using gender inequality. And we looked at different countries and, given our different experiences. And in applying that to the presentation, that kind of made it so much better, because when you're looking at these kind of issues on a global scale and you get all of these different countries coming in with their own experiences, you're addressing the problem from a more holistic perspective. And so, yeah, we kind of just tied all of these different ideas in a common ground, which is gender inequality, something that's faced across the world.
Thank you so much, Mansi and Nuela. And again, the ideas that they presented is good. The other ones that you choose not to, doesn't mean that they were less good, but again, this is the dynamics of how a group work, and maybe the other ideas could be a seed for future projects. So good job, group 2/2. Thank you so much for presenting. Please give them a hand. Thank you so much. Now we are ready to move to the next presentation. So who would like to present next? We have group 2, 3, and what else do we have? Give me 1 second. Yes, sorry, we have 3, 2, and 4, 3. So who's like to go next?
Either is fine for us, I believe.
So Oscar, what group are you in?
I am in group 3-2.
3-2. So 3-2 then.
All right, sounds good. Do you mind if I share my screen?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, cool. I will just get it on the slide and everything. And everyone can see that, right? Oh, sorry, I've made a mistake. I haven't used PowerPoint since school, unfortunately. All right, everyone can see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. All right, let me just set a timer so that I can make sure that I'm keeping on track, and then I'll get going. All right.
All right, so hi, I'm Miriam. I'm this year's summit leader, and I would like to introduce our group 3-2 and give new students time to speak about what we did during those meetings.
All right, cool. All right, so my name is Oscar, and I will be starting us off. We are group 3-2. We didn't come up with a team name, but that is us. So one thing that we came across over the course of this entire summit is that the world is honestly a place that is full of problems. There's inequality, there's environmental problems, there's issues across the world. But how are we able to make that change? How are we able to, as a group of people across the world, make that change as global citizens? So with the UAP that we were given, which is Walking with Youth, we decided that we would go with how can we impart quality education equally throughout the world? One of our group members found the quote that education is a manifestation of perfection present already in man. But we found that in our world, this perfection really hasn't yet been harnessed. And we think that a key factor for that is the fact that education is not distributed equally around the world. Now, on the second day of the summit, we were given a list of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals that related to our UAP. And this list, of course, included quality education, decent work, economic growth, industry, innovation, and infrastructure, sustainable cities and communities. Now, we all thought, wow, these are great. These are very important things that we must achieve across the world. So why aren't we achieving them yet? Why is it not distributed equally amongst the world? But we linked it back to the first Sustainable Development Goal, the fact that education is not equal across the world. Now, why is education the most important Sustainable Development Goal that our group got? Now, without proper education, it is simply impossible to achieve the other Sustainable Development Goals that is in a way that's equally distributed across people. Now, if you look at the map that is displayed on the screen, it displays the average years of schooling in 2017 across various nations. Now, the countries that are depicted in a sort of darker blue, those are the countries that have more long education, that takes longer across years. And then the countries that are depicted in lighter colors are the countries that have less sort of long education across the various years. Now, what we found is that there is a link in the countries that have more education with the countries that are, quote unquote, achieving the sustainable development goals in our modern day. Now, we have a question. Why isn't the entire map dark blue? Why cannot we achieve this across all factors? And why cannot we sort of solve the problems as a group throughout the world? Now, those with access to quality education are having an advantage over others in a world that is quickly globalizing, and we seek to change that. Now, how can we achieve all the sustainable development goals? Not just the ones that were given to our groups, which were economic factors, sustainable cities, but how can we achieve all of our sustainable development goals that were given to all the groups? Now, we see that the problem is the fact that not everybody is given the same opportunity to fix those sustainable development goals. Now, this is due to a lack in universal quality education. Now, how many people across the world don't have access to quality education? Now, according to UNESCO, over 250 million children worldwide have no access to school whatsoever. But this doesn't even begin to scratch the surface of those who have access to school, but perhaps that school is not sufficient in preparing these children for the future. Almost 1 billion adults worldwide are illiterate, so they cannot read. And this is very difficult in a world that is heavily reliant on the internet and heavily reliant on books and literature for learning. Now, this map, the countries depicted in red have the highest rates of illiteracy. And if you remember the map from the last slide, the countries that are in a lighter blue are also the countries that are in a darker red. So why should we care? Why does this matter in our rapidly changing world? So in this world, it is important for our global citizens to receive universal quality education if youth are to tackle the problems of the present and the future. Because quality education increases youth's chances of making change in the world. In the UAP presentation that we listened to on the third day or on the second day, we heard that we must make change together. But if we're not together with these same opportunities, we cannot make that change equally. It will remain divided as we see in those maps.
Now, what is the main educational crisis that we face? Now, the first problem is that of the brain drain. Young, innovative people from developing countries like India intend to leave the country and shift to developing countries like the US, Canada, UK, and etc. for better job opportunities, better educational facilities, better living conditions, and better remunerations. Hence, the lack of these minds retards the growth and development of the country. Now, the second point that mainly our country faces that has so many languages, that is neglect of regional languages. The medium of instruction, particularly in science subjects, is English. So rural students who are not well versed in English cannot study science properly in English. They can't assess themselves parallelly and equally with the urban students, and hence unequal education prevails. Now, the third point that is applicable all over the world is very, very, very high expensive education. This educational crisis is faced by most of us in different countries all around the world. It's difficult for many of us to afford such high tuition and hostel charges in reputed colleges and universities for higher studies. Innovative students from a financially feeble background find it difficult to continue with the studies, and eventually a large crowd of people can't gain equal education.
So another problem is education prices. And on average, prices of college in America is $30,000, which is twice as much as any other average developed country. And also the prices of education in other countries are also going up. It's not only just America. And the main, the reason why prices are going up is the demand. A lot of students from other countries around the world are coming to America, and the rise of enrollment in colleges around the country is going up, and that also means that the financial aid will have to be increased. And a lot of these schools are asking for more money in tuition to gain their financial aid. And state funding has also decreased by 11% in the last 10 years. And that leads to a rise of tuition. And it's not only public schools, but also private schools. And a lot of places are also trying to find solutions like giving states, I think, $43 billion to try to make education free. But a lot of states are denying that request. So there's still a lot that has to be done.
So we think that in the 21st century, technology has played and continues to play an important role in providing education to students outside of school and in school. And education in some countries, for example, in mine, Ukraine, is still oriented towards acquisition of knowledge, the content of which is often outdated and not just according to needs modern students. So on the one hand, it must pass on the next generation what works on the current and past generations. But on the other hand, it is necessary to respond flexibly and quickly to technological and social changes. To address digital challenges in education and use technology to accelerate learning, reduce learning poverty and support development, there is a need to focus on some challenges like in digital infrastructure, like connectivity, like devices and software. Human infrastructure is also needs to be focused, like teacher skills, student skills, and of course support of parents. And we also need to focus in logistic and logistical and administrative systems to support the technologies.
Our problem is the inequality in education. Here in Chile and first of all in the third world countries, it's very common that the people that have money go to universities and everything, but the people that go to public schools, they have a very bad education. And
Luca, can you raise the volume a little bit?
Okay. Let me.
Do you hear me better? Okay. I will start again. The main problem we see, at least I see, is the inequality of the education. Here in Chile and principally in third world countries, it's very common that the difference between public and school is very enormous. Like like a comparison point, this is my school is a whole, let's say, it's a big apple, and public schools can be like 10 square meters. So, and it comparison the schools at another point gave me an individual computer, and public schools then it didn't have computers. That is difference because of the here at least in Chile is because of the dictadura that goes in the 70s, and they have the repercussions to today's date, and that's the big problem here, at least in Chile and third world countries, the inequality of education between public and schools. The Red Chair Initiative is a potential solution to raise awareness about the issue of kids not receiving their inalienable right to education. The Global Red Chair Project was launched in 2016 to raise awareness about the right to education and the fact that millions of youth continue to be denied this unalienable right. Without education, we're more likely to be poor. Without education, we're less likely to be healthy. And without education, we encounter higher rates of inequality and inequity. Without education, girls and women are less empowered to assert themselves, to stand up for their rights as well. So what can we do? Though we may not be able to change this problem immediately, by raising awareness, we can spur change. The Red Chair Initiative is a good example of how Jesuit schools have raised awareness in the past. And if it's not already implemented in your school, maybe you should suggest it. As more people become aware of the crisis, the drive to change it will increase.
Yeah, so the Red Chair Initiative is something that is not present in my school currently, but the guiding teacher that was with me over the course of the summit, we were talking about our projects in our individual breakout rooms, and he suggested the Red Chair Initiative. So I did some research, and this is something that is implemented at Aiden School. This is something that's implemented at some of the schools that are here at this summit. So it's a Jesuit initiative that, in which case, or sorry, in the Red Chair, represents the students who don't have access to the education. And what that does is it raises awareness in the local communities. Now, the sad thing is this is something that's only happening across Jesuit schools. It's not happening across the greater sort of part of the world. So what we seek to do as our group is sort of raise awareness for everyone, not just for those in Jesuit schools, but for as many people to know about this project and for as many people to know about this crisis as possible. Because the more people who care about the problem, the more people who will care about fixing it. Now, to connect our presentation to the presentation that was just said, there's a lot of systemic inequality, like less education for women or less quality STEM education for women. Across parts of the world, there is different quality education for people in different neighborhoods based off of race and things like that. So what we would like to focus on is the Red Chair Initiative is a good way to spur change in one's local community, because this is not a problem that we can tackle sort of worldwide, because education systems are different across the world, no matter where you go. A good conversation that we had while we were just talking was we were talking about how is education in your home country? And we found that across the board, everybody's experience was very different. Now, of course, there's a couple similarities, but it's very different. So the Red Chair Initiative is a good way to spur change in your local community, because you cannot necessarily make change on a global change without starting small. And the Red Chair Initiative is a good way to do it. So what our group would suggest is, if this is not already implemented in your school, suggest it to your administration, suggest it to the people who are around you. And then by focusing on something and then using this as a symbol for change, then we can actually make change as a team globally. All right, in conclusion, as youth, we must speak up for one another. We must speak up for other youth who do not have the opportunity to thrive in this changing world. By starting this conversation, by starting it in our small groups, by starting it in our small communities, we've made the first steps toward change on a global scale. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Group 3-2. Thank you, Oscar Ratchishno. Am I pronouncing your name right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, absolutely.
And Nolan, Solomia, Luca, and Aiden, thank you so much for your presentation about quality education for everyone. You spoke about different aspects about the why quality education is important, the education crisis, and you also talked about the aspect of education and technology.
Yes.
And you provided a solution represented in the Red Chair Initiative. Now, the other two groups, what questions or comments do you have for Group 3-2? And I can see everyone in front of my screen. So please, if you have a question, you can open the mic and ask.
I just had a question. So like, just when you guys were like just talking amongst yourselves about like what education was like in your own countries, like what were some of the biggest differences that you guys saw like between the education where you guys are from?
Oh yeah, Aiden, you take it.
Me and Oscar talked about this on the second day of the conference, just the differences between like the cost of Canadian college and American colleges. Just for a mediocre American college is almost twice as expensive as one of the top tier colleges in Canada. That was one issue that we talked about, or difference.
Yeah, we also talked about like access to language education, because in countries like the United States and Canada, most of us we only speak one language. But then when we talked to Salomia and Miriam, we talked about how in countries in Europe, it's common to know like 4 or 5 different languages. And we were thinking, oh, well, we don't have such great access to language because everybody's so heavily reliant on English. And this was present in our presentation, in that education tends to favor a lot of English in terms of like bigger industry. So we hope to like change that in the fact that better access to different languages will make us sort of more united as global citizens.
Thank you so much. That was a good question and a good response. And Miriam, and forgot to thank you as well. So yeah, I had your name written, but so thank you for participating in this presentation as well. All right, any other questions?
I don't have a
Yeah, please go ahead.
question. I don't have a question, but it's more of a comment. I think that the topic that you guys chose was really good. Because I mean, education is actually where a lot of these problems start. You know, when people have a good education and they, you know, understand about different things, then, you know, they're equipped with the tools to combat a lot of the other issues that we see across the world. And so I was also wondering, actually, you mentioned the Red Chair Initiative. What are some other ways that youth can get involved in their communities to promote equal access for the people who are around them?
Well, in our research, we also did come across many local charity initiatives and many sort of groups that are hoping to fix the educational crisis. I forget the name of the website, but there was a big statistics website that we used in our program that has a very big charity presence surrounding education across the world. So I think the biggest advice that we'd have for you as a group is just do some research into what your local community has to offer, because some communities have programs that send money off to build schools in other parts of the world, where some communities focus more locally on the people who don't have supplies in their local communities. So I think the biggest advice that I might have, or we might have as a group, is to just find what is offered in your local community.
All right, thank you again so much, Group 3-2. Thank you, Oscar, Miriam, Rachishno, Nolan, Solomia, Luca, and Aiden. Please give them a hand. Thank you for your wonderful presentation about quality education equally. Now, last but not least, Group 4-3. Please go ahead.
Okay, so hello everybody. My name is Alejandra Muñoz. I am from Colombia and I am the leader of Group 4-3. Our topic, well, our UAP is about caring for our common home. So, well, I live with my fellow teammates. Thank you very much.
If you have a PowerPoint, please feel free to share it.
Yeah, where I think that Joe is going to share the screen.
Yep.
Sorry, give me 1 second. Can you see?
Yep.
Okay, so this was our logo, Terra Oceanis. Okay, so the need to care for our common home. Some statistics and challenges we face are overfishing, hunger, sustainable farming, and the global food system accounts for 1/3 of the world's greenhouse gas emissions. I know in my community, greenhouse gas emissions are bad. It should be customized for local communities. So our UAP was care for our common home, and we chose the SDG, life on land and life under the sea. So our mission, Terra Oceanis, creates a flexible fundraising platform that allows students to support environmental justice for our planet, Earth, and sea, and to encourage education and awareness about conservation issues.
So for our final project, we tried taking a different approach. We wanted to create a template. Our group chose to focus on funding the future, but we wanted to create a fundraising drive with maximum effectiveness. Rather than just create a single fundraising initiative, we chose to instead focus on creating a blueprint for any school or group to use and apply to their own local community to support local environmental action and conservation. Terra Oceanis is a resource center for student activism and social justice. We provide templates for students to engage in a layered approach to fundraising. We provide the tools needed to create their own mission under the umbrella of Terra Oceanis. We also provide support for student leaders as they develop their own individual fundraising challenge. Next slide. Terra Oceanis provides the tools needed for a successful, multi-layered approach to fundraising with the aim of uniting communities to fight for social and environmental justice. The tools we provide are all designed to be customized. A mission statement, a timeline for the fundraising effort, a fundraising drive and proposal to present to school administrators for approval, a sample letter to introduce the fundraising drive, recommendations for charities to pair with to ensure a clear goal and credibility, a list of corporate agribusiness and seafood companies to target for solicitation and partnership, sample letters to local business and large corporations for solicitation, a sample Instagram page, and sample press release to contact local media outlets regarding community initiatives. Next slide. Here's an example of how Terra Oceanis fundraising effort for Life Under the Sea might look for a school. If the group leaders decide on the topic of ocean conservation, they could set a mission to combat forage fish devastation caused by the fishing industry. Forage fish, like sardines, are a critical part of the food chain in the ocean. The group could choose to pair with the International Game Fishing Association, an organization dedicated to ocean conservation. They could then reach out to a local community and begin a campaign to support the community businesses and international corporations in the fishing industry. Using the Terra Oceanis templates, the group can customize each layer of their fundraising drive to achieve maximum impact. Next slide. And the next slide is an example of initiative for life on land, like Battle for Bunker, but for farming. Next slide.
Okay, so here's our sample of Terra Oceanis Instagram account, and here are some posts, and I think we can go with the next slide.
So this was a sample letter to donors that we wrote. Dear parent or friend, Terra Oceanis is a student-led organization at our high school dedicated to environmental justice for our planet, land, and sea, and to encouraging education and awareness about conservation issues. Born out of the 2022 Jesuit Global Activism Summit, which promotes the apostolic preference to care for our planet, Terra Oceanis is organizing a fundraising challenge to support your conservation goal of choice. Terra Oceanis promotes youth action towards preserving the planet through fundraising. To that end, we hope you'll consider a small contribution to our school fund drive.
We also prepared a sample letter to Charity for Collaboration, which would look something like this. Dear Dr. Diana Rice, which is the director of Sea Shepherd, one of the charitable organizations we would consider to collaborate with. I am honored to have the opportunity to invite you and your organization, Sea Shepherd, to collaborate with and support our fundraising platform, Terra Oceanis, so we can all have amazing results for both sides. We are looking for a successful and reputed partner with a proper understanding regarding the field of conservation of the marine wildlife and educating others through meaningful campaigns. Our team cannot think of anyone better, as your organization's values are similar to ours. We hope to get your positive response to this letter as soon as possible. Thank you very much, Terra Oceanis team.
Sample letter to local businesses. Dear local businesses owner, I represent the Terra Oceanis, a student-led organization dedicated to creating a fundraising platform for environmental justice for our planet, land and sea, and to encourage education and awareness about conservation issues. We are looking to partner with local stores that share our goal and Trader Joe's commitment to sustainable practices represent an important example of how businesses can lead conservation. Terra Oceanus Youth action towards preserving the planet through fundraising. To that end, we hope Trader Joe's will consider a small contribution to our fund drive in the any name of the city region.
The sample letter to international corporations would be something like, Dear Mr. Andrew, which is the Chief Sustainability Officer of PepsiCo. I represent Terra Oceanus, a student-led organization dedicated to creating a fundraising platform for environmental justice for our planet, land and sea, and to encourage education and awareness about conservation issues. We are looking to partner with corporations that share our goal, and PepsiCo is committed to implementing regenerative agricultural techniques represents an important example of how businesses can lead conservation. Terra Oceanus actions towards preventing the planet through fundraising. To that end, we hope PepsiCo will consider a small contribution to our fund drive in the Nima city or region.
Okay, and here we've got Terra Oceanus sample press release, and I can read it. So, how can you help to save our planet? Terra Oceanus mission. We create a flexible fundraising platform that allows students to support environmental justice for our planet, earth and sea, and to encourage education and awareness about conservation issues. Statistics and challenges we face: overfishing, hunger, sustainable farming. The global food system accounts for a third of the world's greenhouse gas emissions. Join us and help save our planet.
Okay, that was our presentation.
Oh, thank you so much, Joey, Stevie, Jula, Carol, and Alejandra. Yeah, very solid idea with the specific details about tools and the letters sent to different directions. Now, as we did in the last two presentations, I'd like to open the floor to questions or comments from the other two groups. Again, I can't see everyone if you are raising your hand. So if you have a question or comment, please go ahead, open the mic and speak.
Like with the Instagram page, as you mentioned before, it's like exactly what do you aim to provide using that. It's like normally it's like say with like creators on Instagram, it's like having been one myself, like I know the main thing is like value especially, and like so like exactly how do you aim to spread that sort of value to your audience?
I'll answer that if nobody else wants to. The Instagram would be used as an arm to help spread the fundraising method. We all know how powerful the internet is, and with one viral post, you can reach out to a lot of people.
Yeah, Oscar, I can see your hand. Please go ahead.
Could you drop the Instagram @ in the chat? I'll follow.
Thank you. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Also, unrelated to my question, but I really like the design of your guys' sort of whole presentation. It was very cohesive.
Thank you.
Perfect. Now we have the link to the Instagram page. Please, if you are whoever is interested, you can go ahead and follow that page. I think I'm gonna do that, but I don't have Instagram on the laptop I have. But anyways, what other questions or comments do you have for group 4-3? Okay, I have a question for you. So maybe you have mentioned this before, but would you like to maybe elaborate more on how did you come to choose this topic?
I can speak for the group. So when somebody threw out an idea, we were pretty much very united on it. So this was really the only one we started with, and I think everybody liked it, and we took it and ran with it. So we didn't really have much of a discussion. Somebody threw something out, and everyone was agreeing on it. We thought it was all good.
All right. Oh. And I like that you have already a name for the organizations. Is it Terra Oceanus?
So we wanted to use a language that wasn't English, so it could apply to everyone. We chose Latin, which is obviously dead, so not spoken anymore. So I feel like it applies to everyone, and it means land and water.
Oh, thank you for explaining that. I thought that was I'm ignorant when it comes to Latin and some, of course, many languages. My assumption was that maybe this is Spanish. I don't know Spanish or Latin, but thank you for elaborating on that. Terra Oceanus, land and
I could just comment on the use of Latin. I think it's a cool language to choose because a lot of these sort of languages that are in use in this summit are stemming from Latin. So I think that that's really cool.
Yeah. All right. All right. Thank you so much. Can we give a hand to group 4-3? Great job. Yeah, now one of the questions that I'd like to ask all groups now, and I think some of you have already talked about, like you already partially responded, or some of you responded to that before even knowing the question, which is, what are some of the major challenges that you met during preparing for this presentation, and how did you deal with that challenge? How did you overcome that challenge? From your own personal point of view, like anyone could have like a perspective on what challenges you had and how did you overcome these challenges. I knew Nuela in the first presentation, she already highlighted 2 of these challenges. What other challenges you might have?
If nobody else wants to go, I can contribute.
Oscar, please go ahead.
I think just the fact that it was an online sort of collaboration as opposed to us sitting at a table, that was really difficult because, of course, there were delays in when everybody was talking, or someone would accidentally interrupt, or perhaps somebody would drop out of the call. So I think it was just really interesting sort of learning to collaborate on an online platform. But I think we worked it pretty well. We used, of course, the call, and then we used the document to organize their thoughts. So I thought that took a little bit, but it worked out in the end.
Yeah, I think it worked very well for all groups. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. What else? Any other thoughts?
One thing that my group initially struggled with, we kind of, it was just the first day, maybe the second half of the second day, it was just we weren't struggling to find we were struggling for, not motivation, that's not the word, but it's just we were trying to take it's hard to take action at first, so start actually getting all of our work done. It was about the second day when it was our group we really started kicking into focus, and we all started we got past that initial awkward stage of meeting each other and overcoming barriers, and it's after that I feel we were able to get a lot of work done and get to know each other too. My group, like we talked like some differences and like what like some similarities, some differences in our countries. So it was just a good talk as well.
Mhm.
But we had to overcome that initial awkward barrier. So
All right, thanks a lot, Aiden. Yeah, that's really interesting to experience the dynamics of the group. And in the chat here, Stevie already shared, if anyone would like to get involved with Terra Oceanus, bring the resource center to their school, please let us know through our Instagram. We are looking for recruits, and a flexible format can be tailored for many UAPs, as Oscar commented. So take note of that. So any other final thoughts, comments, or questions?
I just wanted to comment on all the groups in general. I think each group came with such an incredible idea, and I feel like the viewpoints that everyone talked about are so applicable everywhere, right? And I feel like that's one of the great things about a summit like the Global Activism Summit is that we're connecting countries, right? It's not just states, it's not just provinces, but it's countries. And so when people bring in such amazing ideas from their personal experiences across the globe, I think, it really allows you to see how much we have in common, as opposed to how different each of us are.
Right, completely agree. Thank you, Mansi. And yeah, so thank you so much for everyone. I personally enjoyed attending all of your presentations and learning about all of the details related to the projects that you choose. Now, our next step is to go to the main hall for summary and closing. You have done a great job, everyone. So feel free to join the main hall right now and maybe take a little break. We can have maybe 5-minute break, and then, well, we have about 8 minutes before it's 55 on the hour, and I will see you there. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.